Hey there, Drady here. Today's video is all about how to trim your candle wick.
Hey everyone, on today's episode we're going to go through 3 reasons on why you have to trim your candle wick. So let's jump right into it. So a lot of you have been asking us why it's important to trim your candle wick. We've been getting a lot of requests for this, a lot of video requests for this in our Facebook group. So we're going to jump into 3 reasons why you have to trim your candle wick. The first one would be mushrooming. So mushrooming is the excess carbon on the top of your candle wick. Now this could look like a mushroom, that's why it's called mushroom. And when you light your candle, this mushroom at the top can cause the flame to be ginormous, to give off a lot of soot and smoke. So you want to make sure to trim your wick if you see it mushrooming at the top.
So another reason why you should trim your candle wick is to prevent soot and smoke buildup. So we kind of just talked about this when we were talking about mushrooming, but the top of your wick, all the extra carbon builds into little clumps on the top of your wick, and when you light it, that's what causes the soot and the black smoke to go into the air. So when you trim your candle wick, it prevents that extra buildup from happening. And if you get soot or any black stuff on the inside of your candle jar, you can just clean it with a dry sponge, and it's super easy to get rid of.
Just use a wiping motion and it'll come right off.
Yeah.
Another thing that could make soot or like cause smoke to go in the air is that the wick is too long. That's why we put an emphasis on trimming your wick, and we'll get into how to trim your wick in just a second. Another thing with the smoke is it not only can it build up on the inside of your jar, but it can also, like if you have your candle next to a wall, the soot could get onto your wall, and that'll just cause an even bigger problem, and nobody wants that. So let's jump into the third reason. So the last thing that we need to consider is how to control our flame size. It's very important that you cut your wick to at least 1/4 inch. Now this is from the wax to the wick. So you gotta cut your wick at least 1/4 inch. We'll show you how to do that in just a second. Sometimes you could look at your candle and the flame could just be outrageous. It looks like an inferno. Don't be alarmed, this is very common. All you got to do is make sure that your wick isn't too long, because if it's too long, the flame will just be out of control. It'll burn the wax. You won't get any hot throw or fragrance release from it. So you got to trim your wick if it's too long. Also, why the flame could be out of control is that there's mushrooming on the top. We'll also show you a video of this candle, which it has a mushroom on the top, so you could get a better idea of what it looks like. But you don't want clumps to build up on the end of your wick, because the flame will just feed off of that unburned carbon and just get out of control. So now we're going to jump into how to trim your wick. So we'll be right back. So some of the things that you need in order to trim your wick is obviously a candle with a wick that needs to be trimmed, and then also you'll need some scissors.
Okay, scissors.
There are specific wick trimmers that you could get. I think personally it's overkill. Just use some scissors. You don't need to buy
good sharp scissors.
That's all you need, unless your candle's super you gotta really get in. Just get scissors. We're not even gonna go into that. I think it's overkill to get the wick trimmers, but who am I? So let's jump right into it. Let's do it.
So first we're gonna show you what mushrooming looks like. So I have these 2 candles here. And as you can tell, this one has a little bit more. So all this extra stuff right here on the end of the wick and all the stuff around on the inside, that is mushrooming. So this is all just the excess carbon buildup, and as you can see, some of it kind of broke off on its own into your candle. If that happens, it's not a problem. You can just wipe it out with a paper towel or something. This one has a little bit less mushrooming, but it definitely still has some mushrooming right here on the end. So it's not terrible, not as bad as the first one, but it's still mushrooming, and you still will want to make sure you trim that one. So now we're going to trim our wick to 1/4 inch, so let me show you how to do it. Okay, so before I trim it, I'm going to use my scissors to kind of hit off some of this extra, so it's a little easier to trim. So now this whole thing right here is our wick. So we scraped off some of the excess mushrooming. And so now we're gonna go in and trim it. So you kind of just grab the end. And look, it kind of just picked off on its own. See, so that's sometimes what happens when you don't trim it. The wick will kind of, just as you're pulling it, will kind of just come off on its own. So this right now is about the size that you want it to light it next. And then all this extra buildup, you can just dump it out on a paper towel or take a paper towel and wipe down the inside and you should be good. Okay, so now let's do this one. So let me hit off some of the excess. And then we're going to take our scissors and you kind of go down a little bit at an angle and bam, just clip it right off. So there you go. That should be about 1/4 of an inch. So then we'll just get rid of this extra soot. And it should be ready to light. Okay. So now let's get paper towel and get this extra soot out. Now this one is all up here. So let's dump this soot out. So even like when you're cleaning it, it'll still kind of smear a little bit. That's good, that's fine. I wouldn't worry too much about it. You just don't want any big chunks of the soot like still in the candle. So now, let's light our newly trimmed wicks. There's 1, 2, and this little guy down here. Oh, come on. He doesn't want to light. There we go.
There you have it, guys. Hope you learned how to trim your candle wick today and also why to trim your candle wick. It's very important that you do it. If you have any requests for future videos that you want us to make regarding candle making, go ahead and comment them right down below. Also, follow us on our Instagram right here. We also have a Facebook group where a bunch of us candle makers get together and talk about different things about candle making, like wax, where we get our wax, where we get our labels. So if you want to join that, the link will be in the description below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We love you so much. God bless you. We'll see you next week.